and welcome to Data Matters Podcast, brought to you by Matatika, the simpler, smarter data platform that doesn't lock you in. In this podcast, we get into the bits and bytes of modern data, uncovering the stories from you, today's data leaders. Hosted by me, Aaron Phethean. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, Kevin, and welcome to the show. Absolutely awesome to have you on, and the beginning of season 4. You're our first guest, and I cannot wait to try out this new format. And we've known each other a while, and we've worked together, but now probably more than ever, I get to understand what it's like for you on the other side of the fence, and really get to know what's going on in your working life. Maybe you could kick us off with just a little bit of a description of you and the company you work for, and just for everyone listening, so they can get a sort of concept of what a day in your life is like.
Definitely, yeah. So Kevin Sampson, I work for Vertex Service Partners. I've been with Vertex Service Partners coming up on 2 years now. So I was their very first data hire. Vertex is a residential and commercial roofing company that is private equity backed, and we're a PE roll-up of a couple dozen brands across the United States. So we've really created what we kind of call partner services, but we're kind of the back end office to a lot of these roofing companies, providing their marketing support, HR support, finance support, data support, everything like that. So it's been a really interesting area to bring technology and data and analytics into traditionally not a very technology forward industry. And also being their very first data hire, which has been an interesting problem set. Prior to Vertex, I got my career start at Amazon. I worked for Amazon for about 4.5 years. Kind of started as a business analyst or a data analyst there, moved more into business intelligence engineering, which is kind of their word for essentially an analytics engineer. Kind of went more into the data engineering and data architecture side of things. I feel like people, when they become a BIE at Amazon, typically either go like more data engineering or data science is kind of their tracks. I went kind of more towards the data engineering side, and then was looking for something new and met our VP of technology, Scott, who's my boss, and he told me about this opportunity to kind of take their data and analytics platform from 0 to 100, and
Cool opportunity.
it was really interesting. It's been really interesting so far. So it's a fun area to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me the way things work, and it may be limited to the US. This kind of roll-up idea of lots of brands, and you kind of almost, who would have thought that you could come from a tech job in Amazon looking at the scale of data that they're dealing with to roofing, and there's actually tons of data there that you're dealing with across lots of different regions and companies, and there's an awful lot there to do for one person to build it from the ground up. So what a cool role.
Yeah, it's very related. At Amazon, I was part of their logistics organization, so kind of saw how data and analytics can be pushed into operations. That's all roofing is it's a sales organization and it's an operations organization. There's really no difference between that and other types of companies that are more like technology enabled.
And I think it's super relevant to anyone. Almost every company is boiled down to that. You're making sales, you're making the delivery of some sort that needs to be serviced. That as a picture for everyone, I think they will be able to relate to. And the other thing that stands out to me about your role and what Vertex do is that you're looking at quite a broad set of data to make decisions. And you mentioned something there earlier about making your entry into IT. If you start your career in IT, it does go one of two ways. Either you get to know the business more, or you get sort of more technical in your role. And I wonder, just for everyone who's listening, we're trying to out a new format on the podcast, and the idea is that we have a kind of fairly standard 4 questions to ask. And the first question is really about, the moment in your career where you thought data's for me, or, the kind of point at which you thought, yeah, this is absolutely love this. And I wonder if you can, think back and bring it to life for us. So when did you think I must do this more, and you sort of got the buzz for it?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty early on in my career at Amazon. They had a traditional problem that a lot of companies have, where they have dashboard sprawl. They
Mm.
have, metrics looking different in different places. Really, kind of leaning more into like that data architecture, developing a strong data model. So I think that was kind of the point when I was really interested in it, being able to, they did a big transition from Tableau to QuickSight, AWS's dashboard offering.
Mm.
And a lot of the dashboards were just like built like for like, as opposed to kind of taking a step back and being like, what do we actually need? What are these delivering? How can we consolidate? So kind of being able to, track usage across the dashboards, identify what we need, dig into each one of the dashboards. Where is it pulling data from? What like insights are being delivered on this platform? What can be consolidated? How can we kind of like reorganize the data marts that are feeding into these things? And I really kind of found that like data architecture lens to be really interesting, because you're essentially organizing, like you're just reorganizing the closet of
Yeah.
your data, and also kind of starting the communication again with stakeholders as to like what this metric is, what does it mean, like literally what, where conditions and case statements are in the SQL code that are delivering, this metric to you, and
Mm.
is that what you like currently view it as, especially in an organization that has a very mature data model. Like someone could have put in an assumption years ago and we're still working off that assumption, and we really challenged that assumption since then. So that was kind of a time that I thought was really interesting. And I also, coming over to Vertex, that was kind of one of the big draws to me, was I could build a data model from scratch, and I can take all the things that I've learned about what is a sustainable data model that is hands off, has a lot of like insights, can give people the information to know why, a particular job falls into this metric or doesn't fall into this metric. So it was kind of an interesting problem set, and I've really like kind of taken that like data architecture lens with things. And I think that's becoming more and more relevant now, especially the data model side, as we're moving into this kind of AI first world,
Yeah. I
where you
totally
need to
agree.
have like a really solid data model semantic layer to your data model that you can pull into BI, you can pull into AI, you can do ad hoc reporting on, and you're going to be getting the same results from all these different sources.
Yeah, I was actually going to make that comment when you were telling us about, the where your journey started at Amazon. That it was actually sounded quite meta, actually, like it was data about data, data about data being
Yeah.
visualized by people. Like, who is using it? What does it mean? Like, actually, I,
hmm
can- I can totally see the relationship there that you're talking about. Actually describing what a thing is, and then
Yeah.
unbundling it. Who cares about it still? Like, who's even looking at that report? Yeah, it makes total sense that you'd relate that to everyone's challenge today, which is definitely about what data means and how to.
Yeah. And there's a big trust component to it, right? Like if your semantic model is not organized in a fashion that can be pulled into multiple different tools, and there's any sort of distrust that begins with it, automatically is a blocker for people like adopting what you're building. So I think it's more and more relevant as we go forward in kind of the data world, as we're advancing these tools.
Yeah, I wonder whether you found that, let's say in the pre-AI world, when you showed a metric to someone that was, they didn't trust or lost faith in, like, how did they respond at that time?
I think it's an evolving thing. Like I think that in the past it was just like this is wrong kind of thing. And I think it's I've learned to like ask the follow-on questions of like,
Yeah.
well, what is it wrong? How do you expect it to be? Give me a specific example of what you think would be right. Let me see how that deviates from how we have it. And in a pre-AI world, that would be 30 minutes of my time to pull that
Mhm.
together. now I just get to ask Claude Code like my question, and it spits out an answer in 2 minutes, and does 30 minutes of work for me. So it's kind of evolved in that way, where it's just
Interesting.
it's understanding what their expectations are and then telling them why or why not the metric falls within their definition.
Yeah, yeah. Is the conversation pattern quite similar? Sort of, I'm wondering, like, so you're utilizing Claude in a very similar way to you would have thought about it yourself. It sounds like you're saying, like, do you actually find a similarity in the pattern there?
I do. I mean, I think that the um someone that was kind of like a mentor to me at Amazon, like, gave me the hint that, like, you just need to get down to raw data and understand like what they're viewing as right. And also, it's also a good like pushback to the stakeholder of like,
Mm.
okay, if you're telling me this wrong, then tell me what's right, kind of thing. So I think you're able to give the same sort of prompting to Claude in order to like be like, hey, here's like the actual job ID that they think is right. So like, tell me why it's wrong, and it's able to process that pretty well.
Yeah, and it's sort of, yeah. I sort of wonder, sort of wondering out loud here. If you didn't have that experience, it would be quite challenging to ask the stakeholder the question to push back, but it also would be quite challenging to ask Claude Code the question to get, to get the
Yeah,
discovery. So, there's no substitute for your experience in that domain. That seems quite,
there's
insightful.
Yeah, there's definitely a level of experience. I think that's kind of one of the challenges that are probably a lot of like junior folks have
Mm.
nowadays, like coming into the workforce, is they just don't have that pre-AI experience to kind of rely on in order to tell AI to give you the results that you want, you know? So I think that'll probably be a little bit of a market differentiator between, folks that survive in the data world and the post AI world and people that don't, you know?
Yeah, 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 exactly. And maybe that is a perfect time for our second question. So I wonder what you think the data industry as a whole is getting completely wrong at the moment, and what should they be doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of a confusion in the data world around like delivering insights and delivering answers. So, like, especially in like a non-technical organization where people are like a little bit less in the weeds, they just want to have an answer to the problem, right? But not necessarily know like the insights that come from that. Like, they're not spending the 20 minutes on the dashboard, drilling down, looking at raw data, going back to the CRM to see how it differs, this and that. So I think that there's going to be a time when operators kind of have no idea how the business actually works. They're just
Mm-hmm.
getting these like pre-chewed answers as to what's wrong. So I think that's kind of one of the things that's going a little bit wrong. I mean, every single company, right, especially in the BI world, is like leaning into AI and like building LLMs on top of their BI platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of a little bit of a dangerous line of like, how much like an LLM is going to give you like the answer you want to hear, and it
Yeah.
and it gives this very like confident answer as to what's wrong. But if you don't understand the inner workings of your business and how the data is collected, then you'll just accept those answers as truths when they may not necessarily be like the actual answer to the question that you're trying to have answered.
Yeah. So if I could to play that back to you, I think what I'm hearing you saying is that generally the data industry's optimizing for answering a question, but actually there's a sort of fundamental problem with understanding whether the question's a good question or understanding the results. Is that sort of, that's generally everyone's just optimizing to make question answering faster or easier, but there's no substitute for the research, if you like.
Yeah, I think that you're losing a lot of that research. Exactly. That's a good way to put
Mm,
it. Like, you're losing like the critical thinking like
yeah.
lens that you're looking at the data and the results that we're giving you by just solely relying on an LLM to give you answers. So I think that there's a lot of education that can go into stakeholders as to how to like research things that they're trying to figure out,
Hmm.
by having a healthy balance of like LLM given answers and actually yourself going in and like trying to derive answers yourself with your own understanding of how the business works, your own
Yeah.
understanding of the SOPs that you have. and like how data could be uh, either falling into the metric or falling out of the metric that you're trying to get an answer to.
Yeah, that's interesting. The kind of second part of the question was, what should we be doing instead? I kind of have a notion of like that, that investigative process. I wonder if it's in your mind a technology solution, or is it more like a training and human solution that you feel would be the approach there?
I mean, I feel like right now in current landscape, it's more of a human thing. I think
Mm.
that in the future, it could be a technology change that occurs. Like right now, I think like the AI is more of like a exploration accelerator. Like I can ask it a question and get an answer very quickly. But it's not necessarily like a conclusion thing or a conclusion machine that you should be necessarily relying on. It's kind of more of like it guides you down the path of what you should be looking into as opposed to like giving you the like explicit answer of what you
Yeah.
should be doing.
Almost like
So
you
I
asked the
think that's
same
kind of
question, but should you have asked a better question? Would be perhaps
yeah, yeah, and it's so much of it's prompting, right? Like there's so much of it, like even just comparing the questions that I would be asking an LLM, knowing our entire data, and versus someone that doesn't know all of that, like we get vastly different answers because I'm just inherently prompting it with like exact columns that I basically want it to be querying,
Yeah.
as opposed to someone that doesn't know that and is just kind of giving it a more ambiguous answer, and it's just picking whatever it thinks is correct. A
Yeah.
lot of that comes down to semantic layer stuff, right? Like, but I think that like semantic views that like DBT puts out, stuff like that are very baseline. It just has a metric, it just has synonyms, and it just has a definition. So I mean, that's what it's relying on. And you
Yeah.
can obviously add additional context to it, but like gaining all of that context from years and years of knowledge that a lot of these operators have is like really, really difficult.
Yeah,
So
it's not a
I think
two-line description. It's a paragraph. It's a life story about a single column.
yeah, it's a it's entire like 30 years of experience being distilled
Yeah.
into a README file. It's a lot. So I think that's probably where technology will catch up eventually. In current state, I think it's more of just like a quick answer, give me my little insight, but it's not necessarily like a decision maker. Like we need to change the course or direction of course with what it's telling me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very excitingly, it's time for our third question, our kind of hot take. Just for everyone who's listening, what the intention of the hot take is that Kevin's never heard this question, and it's going to challenge the way he's thinking. And it's quite surprising that we were already talking about semantic layers. And I was at this conference, actually it's a meetup, a couple hundred people in a room, a speaker on the main stage, and they made the comment that is going to be your hot take. And they said that they didn't believe that AI needed a semantic layer. And I wonder what your reaction to that is how do you feel about, would it work well without a semantic layer? Could you imagine, like, does it serve a purpose at all?
I think not having a semantic layer works in a business that is very simple. I think that it doesn't if it's a straight we track sales the same way, we track revenue the same way, we track leads the same way as the industry standard for doing that,
Hmm.
then I think not having a semantic layer could potentially do that. And if you have enough like reference materials for the LLM to be like derived from, if your business is not like that, which is most businesses, then
Many
I
sides,
think
yeah.
it does need a semantic layer because
Yeah.
there's specific definitions and assumptions and ways that people are interacting with your data collection software, whether that's a CRM or an ERP or whatever it might be, that having a semantic layer to define what the thing is that's being derived, the metric that's being derived, or the process that's being derived, then having a semantic model is crucial to that.
Yeah.
Also, just like on the synonym side of things, right? Like that's one of the big challenges that we have in our business is that there's like traditional like roofing terms for what we would call things, and then there's like more business oriented names to things,
Yeah.
and then there's all of the gray area in between those two things, especially when you're working in a business where you're a roll up of where you have roofing companies that might be using more of those roofing terms, and then you have all the business folks that haven't worked in roofing their entire lives and are coming in with other terms for the same thing essentially.
And I mean, across
So
companies. So I've often seen that, you know, even the same industry, but different company has their own acronym, their own description of a thing. So yeah, if you've got a roll up of
yeah,
14, 20 different companies, yeah, there's going to be bound to
definitely,
be
definitely.
different
Yeah, there's a
names.
lot of just lingo things that
Mm,
like a semantic model provides that you just can't get if you don't have that.
yeah. I mean, feel like it's a new thought to me at least. Like, you know, when you're in a country like Switzerland or someone that's quite isolated, yeah, the local dialects develop because they don't really talk to one another and they're sort of isolated. Like
Yeah,
that's what's happening with companies who are obviously experiencing the same thing when they're installing a roof, but call it different things. You know, that's super interesting.
exactly, exactly. For
Yeah.
sure. And I mean there's yeah, and then there's like metrics that are unique to your business, right? Like we have a metric that we use a lot called two-legged or one-legged. And all that means is that there's a belief that a salesperson has a better chance of closing a lead if like the two people of the household are there as opposed to just one person of the household, because then the excuse can't be, oh, well, let me like go back and talk with my wife about this and we'll get back to you. Instead, you have both
Yeah.
people there that can make the decision on the spot and you can walk away with a signed contract. So like stuff like
Yeah.
that is unique to the industry, right? And not having a semantic layer or a semantic model that defines that would be lost.
Yeah. That's really interesting. That's really it's interesting. So, now you know, the kind of third part of, you know, third question in the podcast, and we've sort of flirted around, you know, talked about AI a little bit. Now we're kind of taking it head on. What AI been? Yeah, what's the impact of AI on your day to day? Like, how has it changed how you do things? And it's been so recent, it feels, but
Hmm.
yeah, it probably
Yeah.
is evolving. But yeah, how has it changed things for you?
Yeah, I really feel like in the second half of 2025 is really when these LMs got like good enough, and having like skills that you can add on and
Mm,
MCP
mm,
servers and all these other like additional things that you can add on to your like Claude Code and other codecs and whatever you use have really, really changed things. For me, it's made me a ton more efficient. Like I no longer actually do any of the like mundane work where I need to like add a column to a model, have it flow down into the reporting layer table. I don't do any of that anymore. Like there's no reason to, especially
yeah,
if you know exactly what you want and you're able to prompt it for exactly what you want and it does it and you review it and then you commit it. There's no reason for that. And then on another side too, I mean it's allowed me to push more into kind of the software development or SDE world,
mm,
where now I'm able to build React apps off of things. I'm able to um, there's an Azure skill. We use Azure for our cloud infrastructure. There's an Azure skill package, which is like amazing. I no longer have to like mess with Azure at all. I no longer have to create containers. It just creates containers for me and gives me the keys that I need in order to, you know, have data pushed to it. So it's allowed me to be able to push more into other areas of development and engineering that I'm not experienced or skilled in, where like
mm, mm,
my you know skill set has mainly been the analytics and data engineering side, but I've been able to kind of push more into that front end,
yeah. And you
which
know
has
what
been
the
a big
outcome
game
you want to be.
changer. Yeah, I know what the outcome is that I want. I'm able to test it. I'm able to like go back and forth. I'm probably a little less efficient than someone that does have that like actual front end experience. But
Mm,
it's an enabler for me. It allows me to do that kind of stuff that you know, I'd have to, you know, would take months for me to figure out. Instead, it's
yeah,
taking me
yeah.
days to do it. You know, it's incredible.
And as you know, someone who's coded in React applications, it's you can spend an enormous amount of time like, looking at some tiny state issue that's just completely gone away. You know, that's yeah,
Exactly.
never had it.
Exactly.
environment. That would be such a big step.
Yeah.
Interesting that we asked everyone who's comes on the show to think up a question for the next person. But of course, being the first person of the first season where we're doing this, I had to ask LinkedIn what the question for you should be, and I gave
Yeah.
them a little bit of a description of your kind of situation. Quite a lot of pipeline, quite a lot of data, quite a lot of things to look after. And it seemed pretty unanimous that everyone wanted to know how on earth you did your job with only you. And so the question is, how do you push back on new requests when you're already at capacity as a team of one?
Yeah, I mean, prioritization's the answer to that pretty simply. There's a lot of, and this is kind of where LLMs have helped most recently, a lot of ad hoc answers or like things like that. I have been pushing people to LLMs to answer for themselves. I think that the ad hoc side of it is what can really bog you down as opposed to like the prioritize quarterly projects that you need to work on. You know, Claude Code has been a part of that most recently. I think that my life has gotten a lot easier on the development side where I'm able to push a lot of develop a framework of what I want, spend a couple days kind of basically developing like what's going to be my initial like Claude Code request. Spending a lot of time in like plan mode and developing what the plan is and then letting it execute on that plan and then kind of clean up from there. But I think and the other part that's allowed that is, I've been at Vertex for almost 2 years. The first year of that was just building was getting data ingested, doing the EL part, and then
Mhm.
doing a ton of transformations and really, really building out the data model in order to be very like sustainable and I don't know what the term is, but where it can like kind of self-fulfill issues. There's no hard coded anything in anything that I've built so that it all kind of flows upstream and downstream correctly so that if a change needs to be made, I'm able to go to the top of the funnel, make that change, and then it flows into everything that I need it to flow into.
Yeah. I feel like
So
that's an
I think that's kind
interesting.
of how you handle a lot of it as like a team of one, is having a really solid data model that you can rely on
Yeah.
and then leveraging tools to kind of work on some of that more tedious development work.
Yeah. I feel that's a really compelling insight there that, if you're going to serve the business at pace, then you do need a solid foundation. And maybe early on, I hazard a guess that the business expectations were lenient or lower because they knew you were building some infrastructure, some foundational stuff out. And
Yeah.
now that you can give rapid answers, they're delighted and they're seeing the benefits of that.
Yeah.
Maybe the fact you've also got AI is like you're helping think,
Yeah.
you're now amazing to the organization. You're doing so much stuff. Yeah, it's such a
Yeah.
case.
I think the only other thing I'd add on to that is like your data stack really matters.
Mm.
And like an example is when I first started, we were using like Power BI as our BI. And I had no experience with Power BI before. And I just found it really cumbersome to use. And it was hard to deliver on things. So I quickly kind of realized that one, it was difficult for me to use. Two, it wasn't really giving people the visuals and insights that they wanted.
Yeah,
So we went hunting for another BI platform. We landed on Sigma, which has been really great for us and is a lot easier and quicker to iterate on. So I think just kind of finding things in your stack that take a lot of your time and shopping around for other vendors that are going to take less time for you to use is also pretty crucial
I can
in being
definitely
able
imagine the
to
benefit of that.
develop as a team of one.
At the interface with your users, if they can be more productive, the requests are not coming to you, and the best
Yeah,
tool for your job, you use dbt, you build a dbt, that's probably the best tool for you, but the user needs to be the best
yeah.
tool for their job, that for them to get the answers.
Definitely. Yeah, and just creating, a real solid like gold layer group of tables that then people can create their own visuals and
Yeah,
and draw their own insights and you know that it's coming from like a solid gold layer or semantic layer of tables that have common definitions.
yeah,
So it all kind of comes back to data model. So that's why I think kind of that
yeah,
data model experience was kind of crucial in my development as a data engineer and analytics engineer.
Yeah. There's tons of things I could go into there, and our experience of working with clients and trying to explain that they need to invest in that layer because they'll reap the benefits. Perhaps one for another show and another day. I want to get your question for the next guest, if you could. So this is your chance to ask, a challenging question or a question that you'd really like to hear from someone else, very similar roles across the series. If you could share with us, what would you ask our next guest?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, kind of going along the lines of how quickly things have been developing, but what's a belief that you held strongly about your data work 3 years ago that you now think is wrong, and what came to change your mind about that belief that you had?
Cool. It's a good question. I can't wait to hear the answer, and it's very prescient. Very much, everyone's battling with it now. So thanks, Kevin. I really appreciate it, and thank you for coming on the show. It's been a huge pleasure.
Definitely. Thanks, Aaron.
Well, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. Brought to you by Matatika, the simpler, smarter data platform. Data Matters aims to share the latest technology directions and your experiences in modern data. If you've enjoyed this episode, why not hit the follow button and stay up to date with new episodes as they're released. Finally, if you feel the episode could benefit someone you know, please share it with them. We're always on the lookout for guests with interesting experiences to share. This has been Data Matters. I've been Aaron Phethean, your host, and until next time, bye for now.